Could I ask you, starting perhaps with Mrs. Breens, to give your full names and address, please?
Judith Breens. And what?
Your address.
12 Waldemar Avenue, Ealing, W13.
Arthur Breens, 12 Waldemar Avenue, Ealing, W13.
Now, if you turn to volume 3, I think it's open in front of you, page 1207, there should be submissions which were prepared, I think, by both of you. Can you confirm that they're true to the best of your knowledge and understanding, and that you wish them to stand as your evidence to the Commission?
Yes, yes.
And I presume that goes to...
Yes.
Now, if we start with Mrs. Breens.
Okay.
You relate a number of anecdotes about past NHS care in the area that you and your family have experienced. In broad terms, was that satisfactory or not?
It was excellent. Yes, very satisfactory.
So, can we look at your views now about the care and treatment and what it might look like under SHAF? First of all, what did you think of the pre-consultation and consultation process?
Quite a long time ago now, so I'm struggling to remember, but I think we both felt it was pretty poor. I think I've written stuff here, so let me see. Well, are you talking about actually the meetings and all of that side of things?
If I can ask, what you've said in your statement is that first of all, it seemed, I think the phrase you used is plausible.
Yeah.
And then you went on to develop that, and there was perhaps a difference of view. I wondered if you could help us with what made you become more sceptical.
I think I just felt in the end it was a cost-cutting exercise, but why did I come to that conclusion? Dear. Well, it looked as if it was the areas of deprivation that was going to hospitals. You know, they weren't going to remove the one from Chelsea and Westminster, were they? But they were happy to remove it from Ealing, which is next to South, or similarly Hammersmith. And so that seemed to be a bit, you know, suspicious. And also the fact that Ealing and Charing Cross hospitals are fully paid for. They're not PFI hospitals. So it's easy, isn't it, to sell the whole land and make money, which they couldn't do for some of the others.
So did you find it easy or difficult to access information about the process? If you can't remember, say so, because it's some time ago.
Well, I think the document was very long and complicated. Yes, I could understand it, yes, when you'd waded through it all.
Thinking specifically, I want to ask you about the changes intended for Ealing Hospital. And we know that there's a shrinkage of acute beds proposed and a change in A&E. What impact do you think that's going to have on you and your family and other local people? Well,
I think it would be devastating to lose the A&E and Ealing services. I mean, ourselves, we have a car and we're reasonably fit at the moment, but what if you don't have a vehicle, and what if you're not very fit and you're very elderly? I mean, the idea of going to Northwick Park and getting 3 buses to West Middlesex, you know, it can't be an improvement for Ealing residents.
And thinking about that, is that something that would be a source of anxiety to you?
Yeah, I think so, definitely, especially as you get older.
Now, one of the other aspects you mentioned is your treatment at the Western Eye Hospital.
Yeah.
What are your views about the plans to move those services to St Mary's?
Well, I just felt it was very sad. I mean, I've had a cataract operation recently. I've been frequently for various things. It just seems such an excellent hospital, easy to get to. And, you know, why move it to, St Mary's, that looks very overcrowded as it is? It's just hard to fathom why you would do that if it wasn't just that you want to make a lot of money by selling that site. I mean, what other reason could there be?
And again, thinking about your own position, would you be anxious about eye care if that hospital disappeared?
Well, it's difficult to say that because I don't know what would be provided at St Mary's, what it would look like. I mean, it's hard to see that they would have room, but, you know, I don't think I can really honestly say because I don't know what they would put there. So,
can you help us just with your general view about what the proposals will mean and your concerns, if you have any?
The eye hospital?
No, the SHAF proposals globally. Sorry, I beg your pardon, it wasn't.
Oh right, back to. I think it would be Well, I just looked through a whole lot of things here. I mean, for example, you've got to get to other hospitals, that will be difficult. How will the A&Es cope when you close one? I mean, how will the others cope? I've not ever been to A&E, found doctors twiddling their thumbs exactly. Everybody's busy. You know, you can't imagine how other hospitals could, A&Es could cope if you close one. The whole idea of community settings when we don't see any plans, where are there any plans? And nobody even knew during that Shaping a Healthier Future discussions we went to, nobody really could explain what these community settings would be. I mean, just nobody seemed to know. So it's hard to have any faith in them. The idea of urgent care instead of the A&E, I don't know how people are going to know when they should go to urgent care, when they should go to A&E. If they go to urgent care and they needed A&E, how are they going to get to the other place in time? It just all seems very difficult. Then there's a question of beds. I mean, Ealing's got 327 beds, Charing Cross has got 498, that's 825 beds together. If you close these two and there's maybe 100 in each, that's a loss of 600 beds. I mean, doesn't inspire confidence, does it? You know, how will we manage without these beds? The other thing is that Ealing birth rates are rising. The Ealing Council are planning to build 12,000 new homes on the Uxbridge Road corridor. That will be apparently, 12,000 new heads with 25,000 new persons. Similarly, Gasworks site in Southall is going to have 4,300 new homes, 9,000 new residents, and you close Ealing Hospital? Do you think that's sensible? Doesn't seem sensible to me.
Thank you. I want to
thank you.
ask Mr. Breen, if you just turn that one off and put that one on. Thank you very much. Now, could you briefly explain, you've set out your experience of other public consultations and what that leads you to think in terms of common themes here?
I think this was, like many of them, very poor, but it was different in that it was enormously complex. You've got two large documents, one that you filled in, and one was the reference document, if you like.
This is the consultation.
That's right. Now, I taught for sort of about 20 years of my working life, and I know roughly what average is, and this was well above the heads of average. This was very complicated. In fact, I cheated because I was really busy at the time, and someone wrote out a crib sheet, and I cheated. I used the crib sheet.
So are you saying, is it your evidence that the questionnaire that was sent out was too difficult? Far too difficult. These were thick documents. I'm sorry I've not bought them, but you know, I've got some clever friends, and so some were lucky enough to have a hard copy of one document or the other, and the other one on screen. Well, they were timed out. They'd spent an hour and a half and suddenly the screen went dead. So they couldn't do it online. They needed both hard copy documents. And I think Shaping a Healthier Future took lots of small cards, because clearly most people couldn't fill these in and took little cards. I mean, I did offer to help them with designing the consultation document. But there is a certain arrogance of these people that, you know, we know best. It's not confined to them. We get it in this borough. You know, there are experts here who know best, and the consultation is really a tick box exercise. But this was flawed in many ways. And the thing that I thought was really bad, it was flawed in the fact that it was very poorly distributed. And there were no checks on the distribution or the authenticity. So if I sign a petition, sorry, you can stop me. Please do go on.
If you sign a petition, you write you sign your name and you put your address. You could fill this in with no authentication. And if you put a postcode, which comes with your address, they could have plotted this. So after the consultation was nearly completed, I was asked by Shaping a Healthier Future whether they'd missed some hard to access communities.
Pause there a moment. Can you help us with why it was they were asking you? And what was your
I think I'd left a video at one of these meetings, they had a camera and you were able to go into a little room and say what you thought of the process. And maybe they contacted me because of that. But if they'd had a postcode in there, you could have plotted all the responses and you could have seen from a map roads that never replied.
So on what is it that you base your views that the consultation didn't reach all areas? If the SAF documentation couldn't tell you that, how do you know that that's the case?
How do I know it didn't reach all areas?
Yes.
Because I've been an activist and people don't know that it exists. They don't know that these hospitals are going to disappear. And I know it's difficult, but surely there's better ways. They spent a lot of money on this consultation. It might have been better to have done every 10th house or something like that. My feeling, it was just like scattering seeds, and farmers actually have very precise computer-controlled drilling systems now, but they were throwing these consultation documents around like that. There was no checks and balances as far as I could tell, and no one put my mind at ease.
Now,
Random and arbitrary, sorry.
No, please. One of the things that you mention is a meeting at which you sat next to a GP. It was at Wembley, I think.
Yes, that's
I
right.
wonder if you could just explain to the Commission what happened and what was said to you.
He was sat next to me. He'd come in between surgeries on his bicycle, so he'd appeared in sort of lycra, we were all old duffers and he was young, fit and vigorous. And you could see he was having to get off for his next surgery, and he said to me, "This is appalling. They're closing hospitals in the poorest areas." And I think up until that moment, I'd gone along with a lot of this because remember, I'm of a generation where GPs were, honoured members of our community. When I was a child, they were the only people who had a car in our community. And so you tended to think they knew what they were talking about. But this GP was incandescent. I think I used that word. And then off he went, off he shot. But I thought about that, and my local knowledge, spot on. They were all in poor areas. Now, then you start to think, well, what are they up to? And as I went on, I started to see this as a sort of an estate management exercise, really. And we'd been through a couple of these with the police. And you can spot what they're doing. You can see the sites that are valuable as sort of someone who lives in a community and watches these facts. And it didn't seem to be on medical grounds. I don't know as much as some of the people who have preceded me. But it looked like estates to me.
Well, I wanted to come on to that because you talk about clay ponds. Can you help us with how that hospital figures in these plans as far as you're aware?
Well, clay ponds wasn't in the consultation document. Lots of our neighbours go to clay ponds. It was purpose-built. It's a lovely place. You can drive in there on the way from work. You don't have to pay to park. There's plenty of parking. It's got a nice atmosphere. You can go in at any time to see, as I did, my next door neighbour who was rehabilitating from a stroke. So you don't have to make a special journey. You're on the way back from work, hop in there, go and see him. Hello, John. Staff are nice. Foster daughter worked there. Lovely place to work from her point of view. Lovely place to be a patient. Purpose-built, all on one floor. And that wasn't in the consultation. Why wasn't it in the consultation? That's a little jewel in the crown in West Ealing.
What is it that you say is happening to that? What is going to happen?
Well, I think it's going to be closed. The patients and the teams, the patients that are transitory, the teams will all be moved to Ealing Hospital. I think that's what I understand. But that came out later. That wasn't in the key consultation as far as I know.
Do you have an understanding or knowledge of what is planned for the site?
Well, I'm sure it'll be housing. The targets that all the West London boroughs have signed up are enormous. Now, it's interesting that the planners in Ealing never talked, I don't think, ever talked to the Shaping a Healthier Future planners. And the Shaping a Healthier Future planners never talked to the planners in Ealing. We've got this very heavy housing load. I know there's an enormous crisis, but it is a very heavy load. And isn't it strange that the corridor in which this load is going to be imposed upon existing residents happens to be the corridor between Charing Cross and Ealing Hospital, and those two sites as well. And Clay Ponds will have 50 units built on it.
Now, just thinking about transport, you've touched on the road issues. Can you assist the Commission about the transport issues? And I think perhaps you've dealt with it, but a little more. The significance, what's the significance of Ealing Hospital being on the Uxbridge Road?
The Uxbridge Road is the main east-west route. It's been the main east-west route since the stagecoach. That's what attracted Ken Livingstone to it, to try and impose the West London tram. People know it, they know Ealing Hospital is there. Some of the bus routes actually go right to the front door. And I think maybe McKinsey, the researcher, the consultants who prepared this, don't realise how difficult the tube is in West London for those with physical disabilities, because we don't even have lifts on most of our stations. A bus is the only easy method, in other words. In my work with another organisation, we tried to get Transport for London to change the bus route from Ealing to West Middlesex Hospital. There isn't a direct route. But that's like trying to, well, I don't know, it's like trying to re-enliven some frozen mammoth. They're very slow, and they won't do anything unless the economics work out, and that might never happen. So going from Ealing to West Middlesex, which is a near option, that is going to be 3 buses, or 2 buses and a walk. And it really only needs extending 1 bus route round a corner almost to make that just 2 buses. So that's a difficult journey. Northwick Park is impossible. You look on the Transport for London website and you're up and down tube stations, changing tubes, buses, goodness knows what. And it's difficult if you've got a car driver, because when you get there, there's a small car park that costs £12.50 a day or something ridiculous like that.
Now, you talk about McKinsey's. Can you just elaborate for us? Who are they? Who appointed them? And what do you say has been if you know?
I don't know. All I can say is that I wouldn't have written a consultation like that for the general public, and if they had any hand in it, then they're a flawed consultation organisation. It's not suitable for the general public at all. How you would have written it, I don't know. But I would have thought anyone with any sense would have realised that was wrong. I do understand, when I've criticised this before, Dr. Anne Rainsby said we went to the Consultation Institute. Well, I went to the Consultation Institute with a colleague when we were doing the consultation, because I'm part of West Ealing Centre Neighbourhood Forum under the Localism Act. We went to the Consultation Institute, but they wouldn't tell us what they'd said to Anne Rainsby. I think they got worried because there was a lot of criticism, and they had to check the legal position to see whether they could fend it off if there was a legal challenge. That's my own opinion, but that could be wrong.
Thank you. If you'd like to wait there may be some questions from the Commission.
Yes, thank you very much. I've just got one question really for both of you. And I really want to, I'm doing this from the point of view of assessing the citizen's position, or at least your citizen's position. Do I have this right, that really what you're advocating through all your submissions here is a coordinated, publicly funded national health service? Is that really your basic position, and all your comments fall into that bracket?
Yes.
I'm interested in the point you made about the no postcode, so that you can't chart where the responses came from. Because I'm aware of the paradox of a series of changes that basically affect 3 boroughs, but which are consulted on over 9 boroughs, and there appears to be no differentiation from where the support, insofar as they found any support, has been forthcoming. And I don't know if you'd like to say a little bit more about whether or not you think that type of what approach you think might have been appropriate to test out views in the areas where they're most effective.
It's just that when you answered that consultation, you didn't have to put your name, address or postcode. Absolutely nothing at the end. I mean, people could have made it up. They could have sent in 25 And there was it was completely open to fraud. If it had, it's possible because you didn't put even your name, let alone an address and postcode.
I'm not saying it's just Dr. Spencer doing it all with a biro.
Well, who knows?
I think the consultation may have wished to have put hospital and supporters against hospital and supporters. As I said, it was very, very complicated. You couldn't see where you were going. You understand what I'm trying to say. In a coherent and relatively simple document, you can see where you're being led as you go through because you can remember what's gone on before. You can see what's coming. There was none of that. It was a very dense and complicated document. It had never been trialled as far as I could see. If you were doing an exam paper, which I've written exam papers, I would have had those trialled first to see how you got on, and then you move on to the real thing. It was a very amateur. Well, it wasn't amateur because they were paid an enormous amount of money, but it was a poor document. And to miss the postcode misses a trick. Forget the authenticity. If you've got the postcodes, you've got a lot of information in your hands. You'll know which roads never replied, and you'll think, well, why on earth is that? If you've got a whole area that never replied, well, it could have been your distribution. It could be that they were all Somali speakers and they didn't understand any of it. But at least you've got some information. These are supposed to be clever people. It cost 4 million, didn't it? I don't know. I can't remember. But they missed so many tricks. It was unbelievable.
Can I just say one more thing, and that is that you were asked in the consultation to say what hospital you wanted kept or something. So you were shamelessly, a NIMBYism could apply. You would, and also we were told that some people, there were cards that got sent in supporting one hospital instead of the whole document. I don't know. I mean, it just seemed a very suspicious thing. I've also got here a figure that, I'm just looking at my thing that I wrote, they were claimed that there were 17,000 responses, and then I've got that Colin Stanfield, and maybe he's gone, was later told that there were only 4,500 responses. Nobody knew who had written them. I mean, as I said, who knows?
Yes, I think I wouldn't necessarily assume that they didn't get the result they wanted from the exercise. But just coming back to the options you were offered and the fact it was a flawed consultation. I mean, was there, for example, a do minimum or do nothing option? Was there, was there an option to say, well, none of these?
I don't think there was ever a stay as it's saying. I mean, I can't really remember. You must have got copies of this thing, have you?
No, I know. I'm just asking for the purposes of the Commission.
I can't remember. It was quite a long time ago, but I don't think there was an option to keep it the same. And I think you sort of had to choose a hospital, so you were shamelessly playing one area against another.
Yeah, so it's which one do you want to close rather than do you agree to close any?
Yeah, I don't think you were allowed to say keep the same as now. Do you remember?
No. I think there were no options. I think the options were various, but there wasn't the option to keep everything as it was.
Yeah.
And we were told right at the beginning that London was overbedded.
Yes, it was.
That was the premise on which they were cutting beds. London is overbedded, and then about 8 weeks later, because there's lots of clever people around here, surrounded by clever people, that someone found out there was 0.001% more beds in London per head of the population than there was in Strathclyde or Hull or Liverpool. So, that was another fiction. I mean, we just lost any trust in this lot, really. Yeah. I mean, not on the basis of sort of scientific analysis, but just generally, it didn't seem right, and we still don't think it's right, and we know that enormous amounts of money are still being paid to these consultants who probably did a bad job in the first place.
The other thing was that they did have a favoured option, in this thing. They had their own favoured option. Surprise, surprise, that is how it came out at the end. So when you saw nobody putting their addresses or signatures or postcodes, you did feel rather suspicious.
Thank you very much.
Much for your time.
Thank you.